Yeah, I know. I'm trying to figure out how to do that because you can hear him. He's just literally woken up. I might move him across to the other side while the video is happening. Good. Okay, so we're about to go live. I have a little one in the background listening to some element of aspects. Whoever's here, you can now refresh the page and you will see this going on. We will be live with you in a short while. I'm going to share the screen first so that I can do what's needed. Brilliant.
Now is not the time for a webinar. That was 2009. For over 10 years at Tubules, we've been bringing dentistry together without bias. Sometimes we've been misunderstood. Our path was blocked because people thought we were self-serving, but our purpose has always been bigger than just us. It's always been about cohesion. It's for those who selflessly share and those who inspire each other. It's for those who want to grow and look out for each other on the way. Our webinars evolved to live streaming Tubules Live and our hands-on roadshows. Our study clubs have been bristling hubs of activity all over the country, growing together. Fast forward to this most recent challenge sent to test all our resilience. In a storm, we rely on what built us. In the immediate grief, we created Tubules Live Aid, advice on how to cope and how to heal the wounds. What next? Now is our time for bringing dentistry together with the same spirit. The profession needs unity, don't you think? We launched the new dedicated Tubules Live Aid section on our website. Open access and free for all. Tubules Live Together sessions, bundling all of the Tubules spirit into real conversations with real people daily. Tubules-minded experts helping to restart our journey ahead. A discussion area to share worries, concerns, and selflessly share advice and support. Sign up today. No credit card details required for base membership and access the power of Tubules togetherness.
Well, wasn't that brilliant? Welcome to today's Tubules Live Together. What a week we've had. The Geek Out gang now have well over 2,300 views on their lectures. Well, that's brilliant. We had Mark Shaler and Graham Roundtree Wigo on Wednesday, which was brilliant with their out-of-box ideas. And Barry Alton on Thursday really empowered us, not forgetting my invisible Tubules mug that came along just some days ago. One of these days, I met a gentleman on stage talking about pitching in business. He became the CFO of Tubules. After that, we realized that he has another talent hidden around. He knew wine like none of us know wine. I remember sitting somewhere when somebody brought a bottle of wine and he figured out that bottle was the wrong year and someone should have got the right year from the menu. I would never have figured this out. I'd like to welcome a connoisseur, somebody who's been, enjoying wine for years. David Horne, CFO of Tubules, the CEO of Add Then Multiply, an award-winning book winner. David, welcome to this evening's show.
Thank you, Drew. Thank you, and hello, everyone. Been really looking forward to this show. A bit of fun, just a chilled approach, and to talk through one of my favorite subjects, wine. So, I hope you saw the introductory video that I put out a few days ago. But what we're going to do is we're going to go through and we're going to do some tasting of a white wine and a red wine. And feel free in the comments on this section to just pick up and let me know what it is that you're actually drinking, and I can give you some specific guidance on tasting and things like that. But we'll kind of go through. If nobody comments, then I'll just talk you through the wines that I've got. But if there are any specific comments, then we'll go through that. But really, when you're when you're looking at critically assessing a wine, you want to look at three things. So what does it look like? And I'll show you how to do that. What does it smell like? And what does it taste like? And the answers to 2 and 3 are not wine. It's much more involved than that. So we'll start with a glass of white wine. So I've got a white wine here. This is a South Australian Sauvignon Blanc. And you'll notice here, so this is a white wine glass. I haven't put the red in, but this is a red wine glass. The red wine glass is bigger. It enables more aromas and things to go through, because typically red wines have a lot more aromas and flavors. And so this is a white wine. And if you look at it, first of all, you can see it's a very, very pale color. So this is a sort of a pale straw or a pale lemon color. And that's how you would describe that. Now, most of your white wines are going to be quite pale. If you're getting into some big oaky Chardonnays, they might be a little bit more richly colored, a little bit stronger lemony, a bit more concentrated yellow. You'd still be able to see through them, but they might have a greater degree of color than this one, which is very, very pale. So that's what you got to look at. And just touching on that, because I know this is something that a lot of people don't always understand, but with wines from most countries in the world, when you buy wine, it tells you on the label what the grapes are. And the two main exceptions to that are the two largest wine producing countries in the world, which are France and Italy. Actually, I should say 3, because Spain is also in there. So 3. France, Italy, and Spain, who all produce their wine according to the region. And so if you go and pick up a bottle of wine in France, it'll be a Bordeaux, and it might even be a specific. So it might be from Margaux, or it might be from Pauillac, or it might be a Burgundy. So it might just be a standard Burgundy, or it could be a Chablis, or it could be a Pouligny-Montrachet. And it might be from the southern Rhone Valley, and different regions there. Same thing with Italy, they tend to be very much place specific, and the same thing with Spain. So in what's referred to as the old world, you have to know a little bit about your wine, and you have to know a little bit about your regions, because based on where the region is, will tell you what the wine will be made from. So, but if you look at the new world, it's all gonna be based around the grape variety. So on the label of this white wine, it says it's Shaw & Smith Sauvignon Blanc, and it's from the Adelaide Hills, which is in South Australia, and this is a 2019 vintage. So just you give the wine a little swirl around in the glass, let it open up with some oxygen, and then the next stage of the tasting process is, what is the nose? What does it smell like? And here what we're going to do, you're actually going to put your nose inside the glass and just breathe it in. You're not sniffing it. It's not cocaine, so don't go, because otherwise you'll end up getting wine up your nose. But just stick your nose into the glass and just give it a gentle smell. So with this particular wine, I'm getting a lot of lemony flavors, a lot of citrusy flavors, a hint of grapefruit, which is just a little bit sort of more sharp than that. I get little touches of floral notes, so like spring flowers.
Does this sort of thing come with experience? How did you pick this up? Just by doing more and more?
Yes, it comes with experience. I did my wine trade qualifications, so I've been through and actually formally trained on how to do this. And I found the tasting part of it the hardest. I bought myself, there's a French thing called Le Nez du Vin, so the nose of wine, and it comes with, I think, 210 different flavors in little scientifically sealed bottles. It's almost like, it's real chemistry, and I just studied that and learned it, and used to get my wife to randomly pick one, and I'd smell it, and you learn to identify it. Some people are just naturally good at it. I have a friend in Canada, and he doesn't know anything about wine, but he's got a really, really good nose. And so he was over here visiting us one time, and we were doing a little wine tasting, and he just, I mean, he blew me away with his ability to zero in and, oh yeah, I got a little bit of strawberry in that one, and maybe just a touch of heather, and it was incredible.
Now,
So
what do you think? Like someone like me or many people, you know, they don't, probably not having wine as regularly and that's as refined as you are. And what would you say for us to start off? Obviously, it's choosing the wine that's relevant to the meal and everything. But while you're on the smelling aspect and while you're on that aspect of understanding the wine to choose, what's a good 1, 2, 3 tips you would give that help
okay,
us?
so if you want to appear knowledgeable in front of your friends and you've got a white wine, it's usually pretty safe to say that it's got a bit of a lemony nose. White wines typically do. The other thing to bear in mind is everyone will be different, and if you put your nose into the glass and you smell something really distinctly, don't be afraid to say that. So, you know, depending on the wines, I mean, there's an Italian wine that I know, it's a local Italian grape from right in the middle of Italy, and it smells like pineapple. There are a lot of white wines from warm climates that have a lot of flavors of stone fruits, so peaches or apricots, things like that. But yeah, typically with white wines, it's going to be citrus notes, soft fruits, light fruits. Sometimes you can get them a bit appley. If you get a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, they might taste a little or smell a little bit grassy. So there's a sort of a green, kind of a bell pepper or a fresh cut grass note to it, and you can pick up on those. The floral notes are a bit trickier, but if you smell something that's floral, you don't have to say which flower it was. You can just say there's something floral in there. And then yeah, and then when you taste it, so again, just swirl it around in the glass and just take a little bit into your mouth and let it roll around your tongue, and you can do that sort of sucking in with air. I'll show you. And just do that for the first one, because a lot of times you might have had different flavors in your mouth, and it's almost like cleansing your palate. And then go for the tasting.
Now, is it that the palate has certain, because when I was being taught about wine tasting years ago, I was told take it right back to your palate, all the way to the back, and really just all around the mouth. Don't just sort of swirl it like you normally with mouthwash or something, which is just around your tongue and teeth. Is that because the palate has stronger sensors? Is there some thought behind that?
There's different spots on your tongue that pick up different flavors. And it's funny, my wife gets really angry at me when we're out at a restaurant and I'm having a really nice wine, and you know, we're sitting there and it's, you know, there's all sorts of people around and I'm going, and she says, like, what are you doing? You know, that's so embarrassing. And I'm thinking, no, I'm having a really good glass of wine and I want to really maximize the flavor potential. So, you know, you get, there's taste receptors in your cheeks. They might not pick up a huge amount of it, but they'll assess the overall flavor and character of the wine. So yeah, what else could I talk about?
What's the thing with the glasses? Because in your introduction video, you talked about different glasses for the different red and white wines,
Yeah.
and now you've got a white wine glass there. Tell me more about that.
So a white wine glass is typically relatively narrow, and a good white wine glass, and these aren't expensive at all. We break glasses all the time, so we get all of our wine glasses from IKEA. They're £1 each. But they're good. So a good wine glass will come out at the base to a wide point, and then we'll start coming in again at the top. So you can see here is about the widest point of the glass, and then it comes in, and that enables the flavors to be concentrated, because it opens up. And I always say to people, when you're pouring wine, pour it up to about the widest point of the glass, but not higher. I always get really upset when I'm out in a restaurant or something like that and they fill up the glass up here. It's not like it's a pint of beer. And so by filling it up to the point where the glass is widest, you're exposing the biggest surface area so that the wine can pick up oxygen and get more flavor. And again, that's why you swirl it round in the glass like that. And then with the glass coming in at the top, it concentrates the flavors as they come up. So the aromas, and so when you put your nose in, you're getting that width from the bottom of the glass that then concentrates in the top and enables you to get the most flavor.
And what about, you talk about oxygenation? Would
Yeah.
all wines need that? Open, leave for, I don't know, a few minutes or whatever?
I mean, so this is a 2019, this is not a super sophisticated wine. You can open it and start drinking it, but I always swirl it around because you get a little bit more air and it just opens up the flavors. You get some different things with different wines. Sauvignon Blanc, you can drink straight out of the fridge at 5 degrees. If you get a really, really good white Burgundy, which is a Chardonnay wine, and you can easily spend £50 and upwards on a bottle of really good Burgundy. You don't want to be drinking those straight out of the fridge. You want to let them warm up a little bit because that wine has such complexity of flavor. And when it's too cold, it's almost like the flavor, the wine goes in on itself. So if you're drinking a white Burgundy or a big California Chardonnay, or even a big Australian Chardonnay, you want to take it out of the fridge half an hour before you're going to serve it and just leave it on the counter and let it warm up a little bit. Typically with white wines, you don't need to decant them. Although again, with some really, top quality ones, I had a very, very nice Pouligny Montrachet at Christmas time. And we decanted that. And a number of people thought, oh, I didn't know you decanted white wine. But you can do, because again, the process of decanting it by pouring it into the decanter opens up and oxygenates the wine and just enables it to get more flavor going.
So this is where the decanting comes in then, basically.
This is where
That's
the
what I was going to
decanting
ask
comes
you,
in.
really.
Yeah.
I can see some interesting comments coming down below.
Okay.
So Alan Matthews has found says a very disappointing red, but doesn't tell us which red and why it's disappointed him. Upen found a random red in the store, a 2018 Sangiovese Puglia La Vita,
Yeah. Okay.
12.5%.
Okay, so Sangiovese is an indigenous grape in Italy. It's the main grape that goes into Chianti and grows widely through Italy, but in particular in the Tuscany region. Puglia is down in the very southern part of Italy, so that's going to be really, really hot in the summer. So that wine will be quite rich, quite full-bodied. It will have a lot of really strong dark fruit flavors. So when you open it up, and again, I guess it'll depend. If it was a fiver, it's not going to be super sophisticated. But if it was 10 or 15 quid, you'll have some nuances in there. But it will be, in terms of flavors, it will be really rich dark fruits. So like blackberries, like dark plums, dark cherries. So it'll be full of really, really dark fruit flavors. Yeah, and reasonably full-bodied, not huge, not like a big Cabernet Sauvignon. So the body of the wine comes more from the tannic structure. We can talk about that. What else have we got, Drew?
That's what we've got now. I'm just figuring out if anybody else is typing in their wine choices. Minu says, what a lovely day to enjoy a glass of wine together with tasting tips. Well, Minu,
Absolutely.
I'm glad. Welcome today. If you're catching up just a little bit, then do type in your wine in the comment box below. So, David, how did you get into wine tasting and how did you get into wine? Because at some point, I know do you still have Horne and Daughters, which was a
Yeah.
wine retail selling area? How did you get into wine? Tell us your story of wine.
It's not retail. So it's what's called private client business. So I have a number of clients where basically they give me money and I give them wine. My first experience with wine came when I was 15 years old. I grew up in Canada and my parents weren't wine drinkers at all. They were spirits drinkers. we moved house when I was 14, and our next door neighbor, our new next door neighbor, was a lady who imported German wine into Canada. And she convinced my dad to try a case of this particular German wine that she had bought. And it was a 1971 Riesling from the Rheingau region in Germany. I still remember the name of the wine. It was just unbelievable. So we were having a Sunday roast. I'm the youngest of 4 kids, so there were 6 of us. And Mum was serving the food, and my dad opened the bottle and poured a glass of wine around for everybody. And before he sat down, the whole room just smelled like an alpine meadow. And I just kind of went, wow, this is unlike anything I've ever experienced before. And the flavor of the wine was just divine. So that was kind of my awakening to wine. And then when I was 25, my wife and I moved to Switzerland through my work. And there we were, surrounded by France, Italy, and Germany. And right in the middle of the heart of Europe's primary wine growing regions. I had recently qualified as an accountant with PwC, so I was making good money, and we were able to afford to drink reasonably good wine, not your 3 for a tenner stuff anymore. And I just started exploring. I joined a wine club, and it just kind of evolved and grew and developed from there. When we moved to the UK, I did a lot of stuff through the Wine Society. We had a local wine rack on our high street, and the manager there was quite interested in doing stuff. So he used to do private tastings. So we would go down on a Sunday afternoon, and after the shop closed, there would be half a dozen people in the back tasting some special wines and all that. And of course, it was a clever ploy on his part because he sold a lot more wine, and it just grew from there. And then when I got sick of being the CFO of listed companies during the financial crash and was burning out and all that, I just thought, I want to do something completely different. And I went to night school and got my wine trade qualifications. You're on mute, Drew.
There we are. I'm unmuted now.
Yeah.
This is brilliant, actually, because you had a journey with wine, just the way most of us here listening have a journey with the dentistry and all of this stuff. Tell me about the red. What's the red you've got?
So this is a Barbera d'Alba, which is a red from the Piemonte region in northern Italy. So this is one where it does tell you the grape. So Barbera is a grape variety, and Alba is a region in northern Italy. But for instance, the most famous northern Italian wine, which is Barolo, that's based on where the region is. It doesn't tell you what the grape variety. That one in particular is a grape called Nebbiolo. So anyone who's had a Barolo, they'll know it's a really rich, very full-bodied, really big wine. But the Barbera is a little bit lighter. So you can see, if you look at the color, it's kind of purpley in color. It's better to actually look down. So when you pour your glass of wine, and again, you'll note it goes up to I typically go just below the widest point of the glass. But one of the cool things to do with red wine is have a look down, put your fingers underneath the glass like this, and have a look down. Can you see your fingers through the wine? So with this particular wine, I can, because it's relatively pale. But if you were drinking a Cabernet Sauvignon or a Bordeaux, or perhaps an aged Rioja, you would put your fingers on the glass and you'd look through and you wouldn't see anything because it's so deep and opaque.
So what's that difference between putting your finger on the glass? Because the other thing I was taught was you pick your wine glass, you tilt your glass, and sometimes you see this light rim around. By the way, we're getting questions down there, which I'll tell you about. Okay. Or doing exactly what you were, shake and you see these streaks coming down.
Yeah, the little streaks coming down that they call legs. There are all sorts of different theories about that. I mean, basically, it's just the way the alcohol comes down. It doesn't really mean a lot. I know some people say, oh, well, if it's got legs that are straight, it's better wine. It might be how clean your glass is. So yeah, no, I don't put a lot by the legs of the wine. I focus on the.
Let me ask you a bit more about what's being said on the discussions. Vivek, you're talking about pairing of wines with particular food. Just wait, I will be on to that.
Yeah.
But Brian Rubin's got a really nice, refreshing Surrey Gold, a best English wine he has tasted. What are your thoughts on the Surrey Gold? Brian, by the way, thank you for your emails. We did receive them, and I'm glad you found tubules because your attachments, your emails. I'm sorry we've not had a chance to reply. So tell us, David, have you had an experience with the Surrey Gold?
I've not had Surrey Gold. I've had quite a few English wines. They have improved in quality over the last 5 years remarkably. There's been a lot of investment in wine in Surrey, in Sussex, in Hampshire. Interestingly, English sparkling wine is really, really good. And the reason for that, particularly when you get down into sort of along the South Downs and that area, is that the chalk soils in the south of England are very, very similar to the chalk soils in the Champagne region. So the quality of the soil is very different. And then they're growing grapes that grow well in chalky soils. And they've got winemakers who've learned the winemaking style of the Champagne region. So they're learning to make the quality wines and do the proper viticulture, which is looking after the grapes. And yeah, no, I've had some fantastic English sparkling wine. I've also had some good whites and reds. English wine tends to be rather lighter because of the climate we have, so it's not as warm as you get in more southerly places. So typically with English reds, you're going to see things like Pinot Noir, which is a cool climate grape. With the whites, you're going to see some Sauvignon Blanc, a little bit of Chardonnay. There's a grape called Bacchus that's becoming more popular. But yeah, there are some very good English wines available.
And by the way, it's brilliant to see this. Marco Leon has got an Argentinian Malbec Mendoza from 2017.
Excellent.
Sylvia went for an emergency essential wine shopping. Yeah, it's essential. And
Well, I mean,
and
the
an
government's
Argentinian
declared that
Malbec
off
as well.
licenses are part of the essential,
Yeah,
all for
and
that.
but both of them are Argentinian Malbecs. Tell us about those. Argentinian and New World wines. Is that right?
Argentina is New World wine,
Oh,
but
yes, I know a bit.
a lot of the know-how behind the wines in Argentina comes from France. And it's interesting, Malbec is originally a French grape. Malbec is one of the 5 grapes that is allowed to be included in wines that are classified as Bordeaux. So Bordeaux wine can be made from any one or more of Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, Merlot, Petit Verdot, and Malbec. Interestingly, most Bordeaux wines don't use Malbec anymore. But
Why is
Malbec,
that?
I don't know. Je ne sais quoi.
Dev Patel, Dev, nice to see you and Angela enjoying this in the garden, and I like the photos. Talking of photos, if any of you are watching this, this is the tubule spirit, right? It's not man to PowerPoint. Webinars are about bringing the community, bringing people together. If you people are on social media, if you people are on WhatsApp, other groups, share these photos. Tubules is bringing around Tubules Live Together streams to bring us together, doing fun stuff like this wine tasting. Please do invite others along. Dev talks about what are your thoughts of naked wines. They're big fans as they have amazing quality and great value. Naked wines, Naked. If I spelled that, sorry, I've got a bit of a funny
that's
accent.
correct. Naked Wines. So Naked Wines is about, I think they're 8 or 9 years old. They came along and were very disruptive in the marketplace. Interestingly, Naked Wines now owns Majestic. So for the longest time, Majestic was doing really well, and then Majestic fell on difficult times right when Naked was taking off. And so Naked actually bought Majestic. And yeah, no, they produce some good quality wines. Drew, you're on mute.
I'm back on mute. My computer's trying to mute me, like most
Just
people
to come
do.
back though to the Malbec.
Yes.
So the Malbec, it was Dev and who? Who was on the Malbec?
Sylvia was on the mark back, and Marco Leon, two people.
Okay, so Marco Leon and Sylvia. So in terms of looking at your Malbec, so it's going to be a much darker wine than this. It'll probably be quite an opaque and a kind of a deep purple. If you're a 70s music fan, you'll like that. But yeah, it'll be a deep purple. So when you hold the glass like this and look down, it's quite likely that you won't be able to see your fingers underneath through the wine because it's a much deeper, darker. Similar to the Sangiovese from southern Italy, the flavors are going to be predominantly dark berries. So you're going to get blackberries, dark cherries, dark plums. Malbec will have a bigger body. So when you put the wine into your mouth and swirl it round, it's a more tannic wine. So if you try swirling it round and then swallow it, you'll feel your teeth are a little bit dry. That's a sign of tannin. So the tannin in this wine isn't too high. So I take that one and my teeth are normal. But if I was drinking like a Bordeaux wine or the Malbec, which has high tannin, lick your lips after you do that and it'll feel dry.
By the way, I could sense the enjoyment in your eyes as you swirled on that taste.
This is a
It's
beautiful
just
wine.
beautiful wine, isn't it? And
this is a beautiful wine. So
you know, I'm going to come to my favorite one in a bit, but Urgent Tetty, hey Urgent, good to hear from you. He's enjoying a bottle of Mayhill from Three Quires in Gloucestershire. Have you had that one by any
I don't
bit?
know that one. What's the grape variety?
I don't know what the grape variety is. It's just says Three Quires in Gloucestershire. So,
Right.
Urgent, if you're looking with this, do let us know if it says about the grape variety there. Muni's talking
Here we
about
are, Three Quires Vineyards. I'm just Googling this. We're in real time here. So
yeah. But this actually does tell you there's so much wine around. It's unbelievable
oh yeah.
because at one point we had traditional wine growing regions, right? The French regions, the Spanish regions, invariably the Australian, the Californian regions. But it seems like now you're getting so many new worlds, South African wines, Argentinian wines, all of this. It's unbelievable. We tried one in India, if you remember, as well, which was
Yes, we
brilliant.
did.
So yeah, and so they're obviously the wine, the whole thing is really growing. Why is this? I mean, not growing the wine, but the wine industry and the varieties are growing over the years. Have
Well,
you
it's such a
noticed this in wine?
magnificent product. It's yeah. I mean, it's just it's become such a popular product. I mean, you know, as I said, when I was growing up, I mean, my parents weren't wine drinkers at all. But yeah, no, I think it's just growing sophistication and you know there is medical evidence that says drinking wine in reasonable quantities is actually good for your health. You know,
And
and you look at places like France and Italy, and you know you go into the little villages and people are living long lives, and you know they'll have a glass of wine with lunch, and they'll have 2 glasses of wine with dinner. They're not overdoing it. You know, they're not having 3 bottles, but they're just having a little bit, and it's demonstrated that it's you know it's good for you.
and this is a good time to say, please drink responsibly, not
Absolutely.
overdo it. Now, Vivek, nice to hear from you. Vivek is recovering. He was in hospital and everything. I don't mind you
Oh,
saying, but brilliant to hear from you. It's nice to see this. It's always great to see people in the community really growing. Vivek says, is there a trick to holding glasses, red and white wine? Is there a trick to holding them? Is there a different way to hold them?
I tend to hold it like this. So I hold the stem of the glass because what I don't want is the heat from my hand to go into the wine, particularly with a white. So if you've got a white and you want it, if it's at the right temperature, then you don't want to do this because it's going to cause the wine to get too warm. Some people hold it like that. There's nothing wrong with it, but I prefer to hold it like that. I know a few people who hold it like that. But yeah, typically anything down on the stem or the base is what I would recommend. After all, that's why the stem or the base is there. Interestingly, you can get stemless wine glasses. They look like little mini tumblers. An interesting idea, but I prefer the glasses that have a stem, and I tend to hold it just like that, right at the base, whether in you know whichever, and literally just with a couple of fingers and my third finger, the ring finger, just behind. just so that it's, you know, stable and steady and isn't going to fall over.
And Anju Mishra, nice to hear from you. And Anju Mishra says that I'm drinking, in fact, she's having one of my favorite wines, I guess. It's a Vina Mar de Rioja Reserva from 2014. Generally, I love Riojas.
So do
Riojas have
I.
some
Beautiful.
spice and flavor. Maybe it's just because I've grown up eating spice and curry.
Yeah.
Maybe the Riojas go well. What are your thoughts on
Rioja is a
Riojas, Spain
wonderful
growing
wine.
region?
So Rioja is from that northern coast, or not quite coast, but the northern part of Spain. It's probably Spain's most famous region. Rioja wine will be primarily, but not exclusive, doesn't have to be exclusively, but is primarily Tempranillo, which is an indigenous Spanish grape. It'll be medium bodied, so not too heavy, but not too light either. Tends to be quite rich in flavor. If you get Rioja wines that are more aged, so I've got some in my cellar that are from the early 2000s, and they can be almost leathery in the flavor. So there's almost like an animal-y kind of thing that comes with it. But no, Rioja is a fantastic wine, and I think, you know, for many things, it's one of those ones where it's kind of hard to go wrong. There are good Riojas and there are bad Riojas, but you know, that's yeah, that's the thing. But no, there's some lovely Riojas. I've had some amazing ones. Both of my daughters lived in Spain for a while, so we've done some traveling around Spain and had some amazing Spanish wine.
I've got Sanjay Gautam. Sanjay, nice to hear from you. And he says, some wines give me a migraine. Are there any reds that would be low in migraine producing chemicals? Have you come across this, David?
Yeah, so many wines are produced with sulfates, and it's designed to protect rot on the vines, and also to protect against certain bugs and things eating the vines. So if you look on the back of the bottle, and this is a legal requirement, it will say contains sulfites. So the back of my Aussie Sauvignon Blanc says contains sulfites, and the back of my Italian one says contains sulfites. So you want to look for a wine that doesn't contain sulfites, which means you want to go for a wine that is either biodynamically or organically produced. And there's a growing number of those where it's, I guess it's it's the vegan version of wine, if you will. So they haven't used any chemicals. And I would say that if you're getting bad headaches from wine, then you want to go for the organic or biodynamic ones, because it's the sulfites that cause that. Either that or stop after the first bottle.
One of the two. Well, going beyond the first bottle is normally fun. Now, Andrew Butcher saying, Andrew, nice to hear from you. And I know you won the prize for the course in June, so we're still waiting to see if we can go ahead with that. But hey, we've got this way to deliver things. And Andrew is asking, what is the difference between grower champagnes, grower, Grower, for my sins of accent, and the difference between grower champagnes and the champagne houses? Do you have a recommendation for both or either?
Right. So champagne. So there are a number of big champagne houses. So your Veuve Clicquot's, your Linsons, your Perrier Jouet, Moet Chandon. You know, really big names. And you can go up in price as well. You can get into things like Krug. The most expensive champagne I've come across is called Salon. So those tend to be sort of larger company-run things, and then there are individual family-run champagne vineyards, where they have their own. You know, the family has a plot, and they'll make their own champagne. The key thing with champagne that's a little different is, so to be called champagne, it must be grown within the appellation of Champagne, and it must be made from one or more of Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Meunier grapes. And it can be any combination of one or more of those three. And then the process by which it is made is also very specifically set down in the rules. So what happens is they ferment what's called the base wine. So let's say you're doing a Chardonnay Pinot Noir blend. So you'll ferment your Pinot Noir and you'll ferment your Chardonnay, and then you'll blend those two wines together into whatever your appropriate mix is. And then you'll put that blended wine into a new bottle and put yeast into that bottle and seal it. And then what happens is the wine ferments again. And because it's inside that sealed bottle, the fermentation process generates carbon dioxide. And so the bubbles from the carbon dioxide have nowhere to go, no way to escape, because they're sealed in the bottle. And what happens is, typically with champagne, is that second fermentation process takes place over a period of anywhere from 1 to 5 years, and is done very gradually. And what they do, what's really interesting, I don't have a champagne bottle in front of me, but instead of putting the cork like you see it when you get the champagne, they actually put in a little plastic sheath that goes inside the bottle, and then they put a crimp cap like on an old-fashioned bottle of beer onto that, and then they lay the wine on its side, and gradually over the period of however long it's sitting there, the bottle gets turned slowly over it might be once a week or something like that, and it just gets turned slowly. And during the process of turning it, they move the bottle. I'll just put the cap on this one. They move the bottle from being at this angle so that ultimately it ends up like this, upside down. And the reason for that is that the dead yeast cells that are still inside the bottle then settle down in the neck, inside that plastic sleeve that's inside the bottle. And then when they're ready, what they do is they take the bottles, and they typically do this in a machine that will grab 50 or 100 bottles, and they dip the bottle up to about here in a frozen brine solution. So it's literally just super salty water that is below 0 degrees, but because it's so salty, it's still liquid. And they dip that down there so that the contents of this actually freeze. And then they turn it over and they take off the crimp cap. And of course, with the carbon dioxide, it shoots the plastic sleeve that contains all the dead yeast cells, shoots it out along with some wine. And then they add a teeny bit to top up the wine. It's what they call the dosage. And then they put the big cork with the metal cap and the wire cage that you have to then unscrew. So that's how they make champagne. But coming back to the original question, which was, what's the difference between the big champagne houses and little champagne producers? It's really just the size, not necessarily the quality. One of my favorite champagnes is made by a very small family-run estate. They've been running it for about 100 years. It's been in the family.
And this is quite interesting, because now we're venturing into wine to champagne. I would ask you questions about whiskey, which is my favorite, but we're sticking with wine here. And Alexandra,
we can do a whiskey tasting another time.
Another time. I think Alexandra Bucci going, I don't drink alcohol, but my wife does. Could you help me impress the missus with a choice of wine no more than £25 a bottle? I'm going to hold you on that one for a moment, because we'll be going on choices just before we finish.
I'll tell you what, have him email me, david.horne@tubules.com, and I'll send him 6. I'll get him 6. We'll have a chat, and I'll send him 6 bottles of wine that will impress the missus.
And Urgent Teddy talking about his Mayhills before. It's a simple white vineyard. It's a lovely place to visit. Stay for the night in Mayhill. It's a Reichensteiner 35%, a Müller Turgu 10%, Solaris 50%, and an Orion 5%. Okay. And that's the mix he was talking about.
Okay.
Miles Atkinson, lovely to hear from you from Devonport Vineyard in Kent. That's what he recommends. Munis says this is going to revolutionize the future of dating for him. Munis, you're a social animal. Hey? So it's nice to do that, and it's lovely to hear all these bits going through. Just moving on from there, Alex. Oh, nice to hear from Alex Strockers. talking about he likes the Primitivo from Puglia and the Brunello di
Montalcino.
Montalcino.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, tell us about those wines. What are your
Okay,
thoughts on that?
so Primitivo is a indigenous grape variety. Again, Puglia is the boot in the bottom of Italy, the boot heel that sticks down. So it's very hot, it's very rich. If he likes Primitivo de Puglia, he will also like Zinfandel, which is a big California grape, because they are the same grape. Just in California, they call it Zinfandel. So that's going to be quite, again, because it's a hot climate, it's going to be big, rich, full flavored. It'll have reasonably high acidity. Now, we've not talked about acidity, but when you take your wine and swirl it around your mouth, afterwards, you're going to salivate. The degree to which you salivate will depend on the acidity level of the wine. Highly acidic wines cause you to salivate more because your mouth is just sort of saying, hang on, there's too much acid in here. And lower acidity wines, you won't salivate as much. But coming back, so Primitivo de Puglia is a wonderful, rich wine. It would go super well with, pizzas or spaghetti bolognese, or, just a good, rich, full flavored meal. Brunello di Montalcino, it was Brunello di Montalcino, right? Yeah. So that's from a little bit further up north in Italy. In the middle, Brunello is the grape variety. Again, it's an indigenous grape variety. The Italians have over 3,000 grape varieties that are indigenous. So there's a huge range of wines. Brunello di Montalcino is a beautiful wine. It's very sophisticated. It's soft, it's sleek, it's richly flavorful. You can get Brunellos in price anywhere from, you can probably get them for a tenner, but not much, but certainly from £20 up. But I've seen Brunellos that sell for over £100 in the off license. And yeah, no, Brunello is one of my favorite Italian reds. Absolutely glorious. A Brunello with a steak is just phenomenal.
Erica Schumann says, good to know about the sulfates and the migraines, so thank you. Shilpa, hi Drew and David, it's so much fun. Me and the father-in-law enjoying this talk with South African wine. Hey, I remember meeting him all those years ago. Please pass our regards. Kala and I met him. Saying that, David, does Horne and Shilpa Murthy, this is Shilpa Murthy, and Shilpa Murthy is in Kent, based in Kent. David, do you still run Horne and Daughter?
I do, yeah. It's very much a hobby business, but yes. So if anybody's interested in finding out more about my wines and stuff, I'd be very happy to have a chat with anyone.
Well, and you're still listening, guys, you put this on any of our WhatsApp groups, you put it anywhere, I tell you what, Tubules will pay for a case of wine from Horne and Daughters, something that David recommends. We'll choose the winner. Let's go for it. Let's enjoy some of this. Which is quite cool and nice to hear. Alex is obviously asking, what's the best way to start a wine journey? Where do we start?
Wow. What's the best way to start a wine journey? Well, I guess I would say with me.
I think so.
No, I mean realistically, yeah, just I don't know where you live, Alex, but if you've got a decent wine merchant on your high street,
Alex, in the southwest is Cornwall, Devon area. So
Cornwall, Devon area.
Some wine growing regions there.
So yeah, I don't know. There probably will be, but I'm not sure. When I moved to the UK, I started out with the Wine Society, which is a cooperative. They do a very good different range of wines. As I became more sophisticated, I kind of outgrew most of their wines. So typically cases from the Wine Society, you're going to be looking at cases from kind of 60, 70 pounds for 12 bottles up to maybe a couple of £100 for 12 bottles. Most of the wines that I'm doing are 20 pounds a bottle and up. So I'm typically doing cases at 250, 300 pounds for 12 bottles. But yeah, no, if you're starting out, the Wine Society has a program that they call Wine Without Fuss, and they'll send you a mixed case of 12 wines. You can make certain selection choices. I think they've got 3 or 4 different. So they might have one that's old world wines. I know they've got one that's just France. They'll have one that's just New World. But yeah, if you want to start exploring, I would say the Wine Society is a safe place to start. And you know, it's good quality. It's a cooperative, so it's designed as a benefit for the members. So you know, you're not worrying about people going out and sort of ripping you off or anything like that. Yeah, that's where I would start, the Wine Society.
I think Sanjay Gautam's taken up my next question, David. Is it cork or screwed wine? What's the story there? Cork. Does cork make a difference anymore now? Does it really?
So screw cap is so sophisticated now that for the vast majority of wines, it really doesn't make a difference. There have been studies of wines when you're aged. So if you've got wines that you're aging, so if you're going to have a wine and you're going to lay it down, at the moment they're saying cork is a little better for the longevity, but the technology around the screw cap has become so sophisticated, it's so neutral now. The downside of corks, cork obviously is the bark of the cork tree, and every now and then you'll get a faulty cork, and that leads to the wine being off. That doesn't happen with a screw cap. So it's interesting. There are a few producers in France now that are totally embracing screw cap, but a lot of them are still sticking with cork. But around the New World, it's predominantly screw cap now. I find, you know, I mean, I remember, you know, 25 years ago, if someone came over to the house and brought a screw cap bottle of wine, I thought, okay, well, we'll just cook with that because it won't be worth drinking. But nowadays, yeah, no, nowadays that's not the case. The screw cap is perfectly acceptable.
I think I'm going to sort of open is asking, but I'm going to open that up a little bit wider. So he says, David, yesterday we opened an old dessert wine bottle we brought from North Tuscany about 4 years ago, but the cork was breaking up when we tried to open it. Why does it happen? That's one side, but now he's brought the topic of dessert wines. Could you talk about the cork and breaking up and what he said, but give us a bit more insight into dessert wines, David?
Sure. So the cork breaking up is a pain. And I've had that, you know, and you're sort of, you put your corkscrew in and you're lifting it out, and then literally it comes flying out, and you end up with half the cork still in the bottle. Depending on the age of the wine or the condition or how it was stored, it might well be that you had a bottle of wine that was like this and it was left in an upright position and the cork just dried out. It might be that it was just an old wine and eventually the cork dried out. It might be that the cork was faulty. I've got an Australian wine that I've bought, and I don't know why, but every time I open it, the cork breaks. So I'm guessing they're dodgy corks, but they're fun. The seal works, but the cork just breaks, and so it's a pain, because what I tend to do, you've got 2 choices. You can try and put your corkscrew then into whatever's in there, and urge the cork out carefully. The other option that you've got is you just push it down into the bottle. So just get the back end of a fork and just push it down, and that's what I'll do if I can't get it out. But if that happens, then you end up with lots of things floating in your wine, and that's a pain. And so what I do if that happens is I will then decant the wine and I'll pour it through a muslin cloth. If you don't have a muslin cloth, you can use a very fine strainer or sieve, but something that's going to get most of the pieces of cork out, because you don't want to be serving wine at a dinner party and everybody's got a few bits of cork floating in there. So yes, it does happen, and it's a pain when it happens. But that's what you can do about it. So dessert wine. Oh,
Yeah, dessert wines.
Dessert wine. So dessert wine is where there is a high degree of natural sugar residual in the wine. So typically what happens with wine, the grapes have natural sugars, and in the fermentation process, it's the sugars that convert into alcohol. But in a dessert wine, the content of sugar in the grapes is so high that by the time the fermentation is done, there's still sugar left over. So if you take the most famous dessert wine region, which is Sauternes in France, what happens there is that the grapes are actually affected by a particular kind of rot called Botrytis czernia, or the noble rot. And it causes the grape skins to break, and the grape dries out, so that the natural juice that's in there, a lot of it dries out. And so there's a lot less liquid, and it's just the sugary pulp of the grape that's left over. If you look at regions like Germany, where they have their Riesling and they have their Spätlese and Auslese, and then Beerenauslese, Trockenbeerenauslese, it's the same principle, where they've literally let the grapes last longer and they've naturally dried out. In Italy, so I'm not sure what region it's from, but in Italy, what they often do is they'll pick the grapes and then leave them in the sun, and they just naturally dry out in the sun. And again, that concentrates the sugar. The other region that's famous is Hungary, from the Tokaj grain regions in Hungary, which again is all about the natural liquid drying out. And then the last one I'll mention, which is very popular from Canada, is ice wine. And that's where literally the grape has frozen. And so that effectively all of the liquid is frozen solid, and they're able to eliminate that. And then they've just got the core sugars that are left. So they then go through the fermentation process, and there's just sugar left over in the wine at the end. And that's the residual. The most amazing dessert wine I've ever had, and I have a half bottle. I have a 50 centiliter bottle of it. I've only ever tasted it once, but it's called Essentia, and that's Turkish. And Essentia is only made in the finest years of grapes. And it's the finest grapes that are literally hand-picked one by one, and they put them in a barrel, and then they just let gravity do its work, and gravity eventually just crushes down the grapes so that the skin breaks, and they only take the free run juice that comes out of that. So there's no pressing or stamping down with your bare feet or anything like that. It's literally the purest free run juice. And it has a super high residual sugar. They then ferment it very, very slowly over a period of 3 or 4 years. And the reason they ferment it slowly is they want to maintain the complexity, and they don't want to take away the sweetness, because the whole idea behind this particular wine called Essentia is it's very low in alcohol. It's only about 2.5 or 3%. But the residual sugar is something like 500 grams per liter. And it's absolutely unbelievable. Essentia is served with you get when you buy it, you get a crystal spoon, and you pour it into the spoon and then just take it off the spoon. And as I said, I've only had it once. It was just the most mind-blowingly amazing sweetness experience that lasted all afternoon. And about 5 years ago, I saw a bottle of Essentia on offer, and I bought it. So a 50 centiliter bottle, it was £350, and I'm saving that for the birth of my first grandchild.
That's brilliant. Good celebration, actually, and I like that. I think you've told me this before. Dev and Ian talking about we should do a whiskey tasting at the Congress. Hey, listen, I'll do that any point, guys. Both Sylvia and Vanessa Patel, both of them. Vanessa, nice to hear from you as well. Talking about wine aerators. What are your thoughts on airing the wine with the aerators, and where does that fit with the decanting you were talking about earlier as well? Which, where, when, how?
Yeah. So the idea behind decanting is to open up the wine and enable it to just get more oxygen into it. For most wines, you don't have to decant them. If you're drinking older wines that have been in a bottle and have been aging for a long time, so I've got some 2000 and 2005 Bordeaux in my collection, so they've been sitting in a bottle for 20 years. So I would definitely decant those wines. I would even, we had at Christmas time, we were drinking some 2009 Bordeaux, and I definitely decant those. This Barbera de Alba, I decant this, but that's because I like decanting wine. I just think it's fun. But this is a 2018 wine. It opens up. It's got lovely fruit. It doesn't need to be decanted. The aerators are gizmos that you stick in the top of the wine, and it's almost like decanting, because when you pour it, it cycles around the aerator and gets exposed to oxygen as you're pouring it into the glass. Personally, I think they're a bit of a gimmick. I've seen them on the market. They're often 25 or 30 quid. You can get a basic decanter for 20 quid. I personally would prefer decanting to aerating, but that's a preference. The other thing I like about decanting that my wife doesn't always agree with is when you decant a bottle, you got to drink it. And sometimes my wife says, "Oh, let's just have a half bottle tonight," and then I'll just sort of sneakily go and decant it, and then well, we can't, it's now aerated, it'll be off tomorrow.
That's hilarious. Once you open a bottle, it's like you've got to enjoy it. And Jitan, watching this, has sent me a picture of his wine. It's a Terre di Faiano Primitivo organic wine. Hey, what's the thoughts on that? Not wine brand, but organic.
So again,
wine.
That's Primitivo, which is from southern Italy.
Yeah.
So that's an organic wine. So whoever was asking about not getting migraines, that's the kind of wine that they want to be going for. Because if it's organic, so was that Jeton? Ask him to look on the back of the bottle. Does it say contains sulfites? It shouldn't.
I'll be asking him to send me another picture. If he's listening to this, he can do that as well. Now, David, I think we said we will do this for 20 minutes, so it's nice to know there's demand for 60 minutes.
Yep.
Anybody wants 60 minutes of verifiable CPD for this, just type yes below. We'll find a way to get this passed. Hey, listen, end of the day, it's got to meet, I don't know, which of the high-level outcomes. C, clinical. If you know your wines, you can build good rapport with your patients. Outcome A, communication. You can figure this out. I'm going to finish this with a bit of a rapid fire round, really. And David's still available. He'll answer the questions down, so pop it on the chat. Just type yes if you want CPD. We'll find a way. But more important, right, let's start this. I'm going to name some dish, right? Some dish, any dish. And what I want you to do is maybe give me the top 2 wines for that. Red, white, whichever, right? And let's see what you come up with. I'm going to start with my favorite dish, right? Spicy chicken curry.
Spicy chicken curry. I would normally with chicken you'd have a white, but with the spices you need a bit more structure. So you could do a white wine from the Alsace region. It's called Gewürztraminer, and Gewürz is the German word for spice. And it's a wine that, depending on how spicy it is, if it's not too spicy, that could stand up to it. Apart from that, I would probably go for something that's from Syrah or Shiraz. So Syrah is the French way of saying it, but Shiraz, because the Shiraz grape is naturally quite spicy. It has a lot of peppery notes to it. Yeah, so that's what I'd go with. Gewürztraminer if you wanted white, and a Syrah or a Shiraz if you wanted red. And if you want a specific red, I would go with Northern Rhone Valley. which is the Syrah, yeah, or a big Aussie Shiraz.
I somehow always end up with a Rioja, so this is quite useful to know. And I like the Shirazes normally. What about, right, you go for an Italian dish, pasta, spinach and ricotta pasta, or something along those lines. What do you go with? Green pesto.
Spinach
Normally
and
green
ricotta
pesto.
pasta. So you want something that's fairly light. I would probably go with a Gavi di Gavi from northern Italy, or possibly spinach and ricotta pasta. Yeah, maybe a light Chardonnay from Italy. But no, I'd probably go for a Gavi di Gavi.
Okay, that's quite interesting. What about traditional English fish and chips? Do you ever have wine with those?
I tend to have beer with fish. I don't eat a lot of fish and chips. I would probably have beer. The challenge you've got with fish and chips is it's very greasy. So you need a wine that's got a high acidity to cut through the grease. I would say actually a Sauvignon Blanc, because that's quite high acidity. So yeah, I would have a Sauvignon Blanc, but I'd probably have a beer with a fish and chip.
How do you like your steaks? Well done or rare?
Rare, very rare. Just walk the cow past the fire, and that's good for me.
I like them well done. So what wines do you recommend for steaks? Well done or rare, or either?
Bordeaux red, so a Cabernet Merlot blend. So you can get that from, so Bordeaux, California, Australia, South Africa, but a Cabernet Merlot blend is fabulous with steaks. This Barbera d'Alba, if you're just having the steak without a really flavorful sauce, is also beautiful. We're actually having this tonight we're having pork tenderloin and a saffron risotto, so this will be perfect.
And how do I get onto Horne and Daughters to if I wanted to get some wine? Is the website still moving?
The website sometimes works and sometimes doesn't work. I'm not sure, but if people want to email me on david.horne@tubules.com and let me know they're interested in wine, I'll happily have a conversation with anyone.
Brilliant.
There's no list on the site. Everything is bespoke. So I talk to people and find out what kinds of things they like, find out what kind of foods they like, and pick wines that go with that. I also offer a personal guarantee. Every wine that I offer to my clients is a wine that I have tried and tasted and I like it. And so I say to all of my clients, if you don't like it, just send it back because I do.
This is quite nice, actually. So you end up going through quite a lot of wine, which different flavors, tastes, everything like that.
I go to, there are 3 or 4 big trade tastings that I go to every year, and I'll taste 400 or 500 different wines over the course of the year and pick out 50 or 60 or maybe 100 that I'm happy with. And so, yeah, so what I do is I weed out the stuff that's not very good.
I think that's brilliant, actually, and this has been fun. By the way, next week, same time, Rebecca Howarth, she was in MasterChef, is going to do a cooking live session. So we'll probably need some wine there as well, so recipes to come in. But I think that's been brilliant, David. Thank you so much. We've loved it. As a Tubules Live together every day, and that's why we say webinars are so 2009. These conversations, we get so much from them. It's brilliant. This was out. Your knowledge on wine has always been amazing. I think there's lots of recommendations that will come through. I hope you have a great Saturday evening. Thanks for sparing the hour here.
My pleasure.
Our regards to everyone. We'll see you at the Tubules Congress.
Absolutely.
I think it's time for whiskey and wine tasting. Yeah,
absolutely.
Make sure you finish those bottles, guys. We will see you 2:30 tomorrow. The Geek Out gang are back with the Top of the Pops composites. We're back to clinical, and then there's something on every day in the evening to help you through this time. In isolation, we're not isolated. In isolation, we're always together. That's Tubules. As Sanjay just said it in the comments below, it's more than CPD. It's a movement. We're a family. We'll work through this. David Horne, CFO of Tubules. David Horne, talking about wine with Horne and Daughters. David Horne, award-winning book, The Face Principle. Thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
See you all. Bye-bye. And I'll share this. And we'll finish this one more time.
Now is not the time for a webinar. That was 2009. For over 10 years at Tubules, we've been bringing dentistry together without bias. Sometimes we've been misunderstood. Our path was blocked because people thought we were self-serving, but our purpose has always been bigger than just us. It's always been about cohesion. It's for those who selflessly share and those who inspire each other. It's for those who want to grow and look out for each other on the way. Our webinars evolved to live streaming Tubules Live and our hands-on roadshows. Our study clubs have been bristling hubs of activity all over the country, growing together. Fast forward to this most recent challenge sent to test all our resilience. In a storm, we rely on what built us. In the immediate grief, we created Tubules Live Aid, advice on how to cope and how to heal the wounds. What next? Now is our time for bringing dentistry together with the same spirit. The profession needs unity, don't you think? We launched the new dedicated Tubules Live Aid section on our website. Open access and free for all. Tubules Live Together sessions, bundling all of the Tubules spirit into real conversations with real people daily. Tubules-minded experts helping to restart our journey ahead. A discussion area to share worries, concerns, and selflessly share advice and support. Sign up today. Credit card details required for base membership and access the power of Tubules togetherness.